Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third day of Avery Dennison's Converter Academy entitled Making Sustainability a Reality. My name is Justyna Toczewska, I'm Marcom Manager, and I'll be your host of today. Over the last 2 days, we discussed a number of topics, including sustainability trends, legislation. We talked about the role of a label in the sustainable packaging. We also talked about the impact of labels on recycling processes. We also touched upon the need for community engagement and how the whole ecosystem should work together to tackle the recycling challenges. However, today we will look into different types of sustainable materials and how they can be applied in various packaging substrates. Before we kickstart, I will share some housekeeping rules with you. Well, first of all the sessions are being recorded. So please just keep that in mind. If you missed any of the sessions over the last few days, we'll send you the recording later. We'll also share the slide decks with you. And what is even more important, all of the sessions are for you. So please remember to type in your questions. We've got a panel of experts with us today who will answer those questions for you at the end of the session. Please submit your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the streaming app. Without any further ado, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Rob Groening-de-Vout, who is a Director of Film and Paper Solutions at Avery Dennison. Rob, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Justyna, and a warm welcome to all the participants in today's very exciting sustainability webinar about sustainable products. And today we're really going to talk about products. There are a couple of product experts today who will walk you through various presentations. I will kickstart it, and actually what I would like to do is to give you a little bit of a high-level overview of the different, some more background information on recycling, on the various types of chemical versus mechanical recycling, and therefore thereafter the product experts will take it over and go much more in detail. So, as you probably know, all the product solutions we have in regards to sustainability are always centered around the 4 sustainability pillars. It's all about reducing, reduction of material. There are solutions that enable recycling or reuse or are compostable. We have solutions that contain recycled or renewed content, and we have many solutions that are responsibly sourced. You will see already a couple of product solutions mentioned underneath, and we will go much more in detail on those in the next, during the presentation. So for those who have joined also the first 2 days, there has been mentioned quite a lot, quite often, design for recycling or eco-design. So basically, this is the whole thinking behind is that you take already into account when you design a product, the end of life of the product. So for us, it's very important when you design a new product, it's always crucial to know what packaging substrate are you using. Is the PET bottle, is the PP bottle, is it made of polystyrene, is it cardboard or glass? That very often determines what kind of sustainable label solution there is to make the end of life much more sustainable for your packaging. If you look at recycling, and this is very much focused on rigid plastics, you could say actually there are 2 different types of recycling streams today in Europe. A lot of them are very similar. So of course, the packaging is labeled, the package is consumed, then the bottles the packaging is disposed of. It comes at a sorter. There all the packaging is sorted, either being PET or Htpe or PP bottle. all those sorted bottles are brought to the recyclers. The recyclers grind those packaging in smaller flakes, and then you come at a crucial difference. All of those flakes are washed. And what we see in Europe is actually in the recycling stream for PET is typically in a hot wash. So it's, let's say, around 80 degrees. And what you see here on the left-hand side is the whole purpose of the hot wash is to enable, let's say, label separation from the flakes. So clean flake, and we will go a bit more in detail again later, is actually a label solution that deactivates, let's say, in the hot wash, and therefore you actually see the label flakes, they start to float, and the PET flakes, they start to sink in the washing bath. By doing this, you get a higher yield of clean PET, and then basically that PET you can use for upcycle, especially to bottle recycling. If you look more at the pink side, so on the right-hand side, you see everything is the same except the wash. So for a lot of HDPE, but also typically for PP bottles, the wash is done at what we call cold wash. It's more around ambient temperatures, anywhere in the range of 20 to 40 degrees. Here, clearly, the need is not so much to clean, or let's say to separate the label from the flakes. The intention is here much more to clean the bottles from its content. And then typically those flakes are being used either in industrial products, or we also see more and more of those flakes being used into bottle-to-bottle recycling. But very often then, for instance, if it comes back as an rHDPE bottle, very often it's the core layer of that bottle is made out of rHDPE, and the outer layers are still made from virgin resins. But again, here you clearly see there's no separation of the label and the flake taking place. Then actually there are a couple of different more sustainable content than fossil fuel, I would say. So you have mechanical recycling, you have chemical recycling, and what we call biocircular content. So mechanical recycling, I think that's pretty straightforward. It is, let's say, for instance, the recycled PET flakes, you actually then recycle again in PET flakes. So physically, there is recycled material in the packaging, but also obviously in label stock. Chemical recycling is much more based on the mass balance principle. So actually, go a little bit more in detail, and this drawing looks rather complicated. But what you should think of is actually what chemical recycling means is that plastic waste is collected, and that is going through a pyrolysis treatment. Well, basically what they do during this treatment, they bring back that plastic waste back to its original monomers. Then this pyrolysis is going through a hydro treatment, which is basically where they clean and purify those monomers. And those monomers are then used into the steam cracker again, and you can then use that as a input for that steam cracker rather than fossil fuel to make new resin out of that. So instead of putting chemically recycled resin into this, you could also put, let's say, bio-based feedstock into the steam cracker, which is very often a byproduct from natural resources. So you can think, for instance, about tall oil, but also cooking oil. This kind of substances are very often used instead of fossil fuel. As you can imagine, this steam cracker is a massive, massive machine. They're producing thousands of metric tons from this machine. So really to put a more sustainable feedstock into this steam cracker does not necessarily mean that the output is also one-to-one. And therefore, the whole chemical recycling or the bio-based feedstock is based on mass balance. So there goes certified material in, and for that you get certified material. So this is the whole chain of custody. Very often this principle is compared with the FSC, what you see in paper, but this is then more for, let's say, plastic packaging. And instead of FSC for paper, we call it ISCC. So it's the chain of custody. So if you want to, typically what you do, if you buy ISCC certified materials, you have a very pure material, because it's all based on mass balance, and that also means that actually the product you buy in the end is the same as a virgin resin produced label. So hopefully that gave you a little bit more insight on the background. So what I would like to do now is I would like to hand over to our host again.
Thank you very much, Rob, for setting up the scene. Thank you for the introduction. And we'll now dive deeper into the products we can offer. So Martin, will you take over and start with your part?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks, Rob, for introducing it as well. The recycling and reuse of our materials and all the 4 pillars basically that we focus on in sustainability. Will be a couple of topics that we will go through, the 4 pillars as mentioned, and I will kick off with the first pillar, which is reduction in the use of our materials. So recently we have launched a portfolio of products using less resources, and we have branded this as ADRDX. It's a new portfolio of solutions, all under the umbrella of Avery Dennison Sustainable Advantage portfolio, which is having multiple channels. ADRDX is a set of products where we really focus on doing more with less. So we really focus how can we reduce the usage of the resources that are basically in our products. And it is a unique range of products actually, because it is going over all our products. It's including papers as well as films. A couple of quite well-known products will be a semi-gloss machine-coated paper, but also direct thermal and thermal transfer papers will be included in this range. We have films, squeezable and conformables, as well as rigid filmic labels that will go into this RDX range. And you will find and have the possibility to use these label stock in the material in the areas of food and beverage, home and personal care, a retail office, as well as in pharmaceutical. So in a broad range of applications, the usage is possible. What we focus on is to really reduce the impact and the usage of natural resources. And that means less oil, less water, less trees, and less CO2 emissions as well. And with paper, we at minimum do a reduction of 10% of the CO2 emissions. And with films, we even will focus on a minimum of 20% reduction in the emissions of CO2. And next to that, obviously, there are other savings as well in the usage of these materials. So what will ADRDX bring us? It will reduce the carbon footprint in all the products. It will help us actually to reduce costs in the supply chain. We will have less waste and therefore less disposal cost. And it probably will help you also to support in avoiding any packaging tax and taxation that's coming in many countries around us these days. And it helps you to get a better credential on sustainability, improve your efficiency because there are generally more labels on the roll. It will also help you indeed to increase your productivity with less changeovers. And at all, it has a positive impact on the environment. So with that, exciting new development, I want to hand over back to Rob to talk about his second pillar.
So that second pillar was all about recycling, reuse, or compostability. And let me walk you through a couple of our product solutions. So the first one is Clean Flake. Most of you should know Clean Flake by now. It is quite a well-established brand that really enables the recycling of PET packaging. So you can think about bottles, trays, clamshells, jars, and you see it a lot in the fast-moving consumer goods, like food, beverage, and HTPE. This year, we have launched Clean Flake SR3011N, and the N stands for our next generation. So what we have done, we have optimized Clean Flake and the performance of Clean Flake, because what you will see now is actually that this version has improved application performance. It functions and it is also applied very much on parity with our standard S7000 adhesive, which is a permanent acrylic adhesive. You can use it as adhesive in low and high speed filling lines. It applies very well. So what the Clean Flake does, I just explained it in the previous section, it really deactivates at a certain temperature in the hot wash, and it makes sure you have clean separation of the label and the PET flakes in the washing bath. This version is also certified by an independent institute, Cyclos Htpe, which is a quite well-known institute for this kind of certification. And it's actually EPBP certification pending, which we hope to get soon. The adhesive is approved for direct food contact, so you can also use it for food packaging, with also food PET packaging. And it comes with our own top coat TC7007, so also for the converter you will have best-in-class printability. And we also know that this top coat has very, very good ink anchorage, which is absolutely a requirement for in the wash, because the recycler would like to have the ink to stay on the label face stock and not to get dissolved into the water and therefore polluting the washing water. I also touched quickly upon the HTPE recycling. So what Avery Dennison has been doing, we have cooperated with Recyclas. Recyclas is a value chain platform. I would even actually say maybe more even an ecosystem platform, which is really with the objective to drive harmonization of the methodology and guidelines across Europe around recycling and recycled content. Yeah, Recyclas is directly linked to PRE, Plastics Recyclers Europe. And here in this body, this industry association, you have a representation of the entire value chain. So amongst Avery Dennison, you will also have, let's say, ink suppliers, there will be converters, there are brand owners, but also very importantly, there are also a lot of recyclers. So together with Recyclas, we went into a scientific study to see what the effect is of our materials on HTPE recycling. As we know that a lot of our filmic materials today, like P85, Global MDO, PPs are applied on HTPE bottle, and we know they are not separated in the wash because it's a cold wash. So actually what we did, we went through this entire process of sorting, grinding, washing, and also bottle-to-bottle recycling. And actually what we found out is that our product solutions like Global MDO, PE, and PP have with a permanent acrylic adhesive, so typically our S692N or S7000 adhesive, will have no impact or very limited impact on HTPE colored bottle recycling. And then when I say colored, that means also including white HTPE bottles. So therefore we got the Recyclas approval. And actually what you see is when you go onto the Recyclas website, where you can find all the guidelines around the recycling, you actually will see that the guidelines now, based on this study, have improved. So typically when you go through, you have, let's say, your recycling, you get a score, you can go through. There's a recycling tool, and basically, depending on what you choose, where's your cap made from, where's your label made from, you get a different score. And actually, you will see if you select a material like global NDO, PE or PP, you will get an improved score based on this this study together with Recyclas. Stepping a step aside, so from plastic to glass. As you know, glass is probably one of the best recycling streams in Europe, with a very high yield of recycling. And when you look at glass, depending on the country, you have two different streams. So either we call that the one-way stream. So this is when you have consumed the bottle, you basically dispose it in what we typically call the glass bin, or it's a returnable system, where typically the labels are getting washed off. So for both systems, we have a solution, Filmic Solutions. So for the one-way, it's typically, we call that our GRX adhesive. And actually what happens when it's in the glass bin, there's always a little bit of liquid, let's say, left from the bottles, and that actually deactivates the label. And by doing that, actually, the little glass cullets will not stick to the label, and therefore you improve the yield of glass recycling. The nice thing is actually that you can also use them in film mix, and for instance, the famous no label look you can use for this kind of applications. We also have a returnable system, so these are again filmic labels, clear on clear, and it facilitates easy label removal for returnable bottles. They are returned to the brewer. Very often they go into a wash, also a hot wash, typically around 75 degrees. And what you will see is actually that the labels will curl off the bottles, and you will have a clean bottle, as the adhesive will stay on the label, and therefore you have also no adhesive residue in the washing bath. Some more wash-off solutions we have, quite new, the WX6030 and the WW2031. These are solutions which come typically with a paper face stock, and it's used for labeling of HDPE, PET or glass, depending a little bit on the application. The nice thing of these adhesives is that you don't require any chemical additives for label removal. So very often, other than for instance in the plastic recycling, where there's sometimes a little bit of a chemical additive during the washing bath, you don't need this for this kind of solutions. It also already washes off at ambient temperature. So let's say 20 degrees. Of course, the more you go up on temperature, the more effective it is. The optimum temperature is around 60, but it already does the job at 20 degrees. So what are typically then the solutions? So for instance, for the WX6030, it's used a lot on plastic substrates. Think for instance about the HDPE crates, which you very often see in the food industry, beer kegs, or bottles and packaging with a paper label. And then you also have the WW2031, which is very much used on glass. Glass jars, wine glass, beverage bottles, again with the paper face stock. The nice thing of the HTPE is actually that it's also qualified with Europool systems and IFCO, so it is a certified solution. And also for PET bottle recycling, it is also approved by Ritopac and Infinitum. That's more for the Scandinavian countries. So again, a couple of more certified solutions from Avery Dennison in regards to enabling recycling. Then we make a little bit of a sidestep. We have a product called PVCD-free oxygen barrier reclosure label. And actually it's FINOT winning. It is just, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, we won the FINOT Sustainability Award for this solution. And what does it do? It's actually a PVCD-free label that enables recycling of the food packaging. And I really like, for instance, the example you see here, typically with this kind of herbs or mint or basilicum or whatever, where you used to have, let's say in the past, more those rigid lids. You now have a reclosure label, and it's also PVCD-free. Therefore, it has a very low oxygen transmission rate, and therefore the fruit, it really reduces the food waste because the food stays fresh. It's very convenient, open and close functionality, like any reclosure label. Obviously, you can use this material, the full laminate, including the adhesive, for in direct food contact for dry, moist, and fatty foodstuffs. It was also very nice. Obviously, you can use transparent labels, so that really you deliver, let's say, the transparency message, but the consumer can really see what's inside the packaging, how it looks like, and it's still functioning as the way it should be. Then coming soon, this is obviously the one I'm just telling about, is a PP face stock. We're working on a similar solution, but then with a PE face stock, also oxygen barrier. There are a lot of reclosure solutions used today in flex packs. For all kinds of wide webs or whatever, all kinds of webs. And again, here today is the label solution would be to use monomaterial. A lot of flex packs are moving towards monomaterial, so either PE or PP. So also then the label obviously should be either PE or PP. So a lot of the current portfolio is already meeting this monomaterial requirements, but also for more demanding applications, we have developed higher thickness label portfolios. Also what we see, they are very often now replacing, for instance, in wet wipes, where again, you had this really rigid reclosure systems, you can now replace it by a label. So we have solutions of, for instance, an 150 micron PE label, but also a 150 micron PE label with recycled content. Also in polypropylene, we have thicker solutions, a PP 195 or a PP 125. Again, for more demanding applications. Last but not least, another way of enabling recycling is, of course, compostable labels. We have recently launched a new adhesive called SX 6030, and it has the stamp OK Compost. So what does that mean? The packaging is fully compostable. If the packaging is fully compostable, then the label will not prevent this packaging from being compostable, as the label is also compostable. So especially, for fully compostable packaging, for instance, for overdue fruit or vegetables, you can now get disposed of those with the packaging, including the label, and it will still compost. So the full laminate has the certificate. Obviously, it's food approved. You can use it safely in direct contact with dry, moist, and such kinds of fatty foodstuffs. So it's an industrial compostable solution from every denizen. By having said that, I would like to hand over to our next speaker, who is Maarten again.
Thanks, Rob. Next topic, the next pillar I want to discuss and present to you is all around materials with recycled or renewable content. Something that is very, let's say, easy to understand materials are reused in materials again, and that will be going to as a label to our customers. Basically, what we can say is when we make use of recycled content is that we see a significant reduction in the usage of resources like the oil, the trees, and or water. As Rob already explained, we actually have two types of recycled content. The post-consumer recyclates or recycled content and the post-industrial recycled content materials. And in general, you will see that the solutions lead to a reduction of the CO2. But most important is that we try to create products for the industry that are still of an excellent quality with regards to printing and converting, have the right performance in the applications, and basically we have doing no impact on the label functionalities. And some of the recycled products even have a emphasize sustainability aspect on the shelf. We have paper film materials available with recycled content, and I want first to talk a bit about the filming products. We don't go too much in detail. It's more to show you what we have available, and I hope that will spin off demand from the market. Polyethylenes, polypropylenes are available with recycled content. Lately introduced is a 100% recycled PE, top white. This one really is made from a post-consumer as well as post-industrial mix, mechanically recycled. It's available in white. It comes with our known TC7007 top coat, which is actually the benchmark of the industry these days, and can be used on squeezable containers in home and personal care, cosmetics, and food kind of applications. In the PP, we actually have multiple possibilities. The post-consumer Fsc Certified RPP, which comes 99% plus recycled content, and we have it in clear and in cavitated white available. Basically, the materials are equal to what we have as our standard films in PP, so they can be easy interchanged. What we see is a strong saving by going in this route on the materials used in oil, energy, and greenhouse gases as such. And next to that, we also have a mechanically recycled PP, which is going up to 30% recycled content. The appearance very close to standard PP. There might be some variation in batch to batch. And we only have it available in white. Unfortunately, this one only comes with an indirect food approval certificate. Next to papers, I just mentioned as well, we have, next to films, we also have papers available. And papers are coming in a wide variety. I just want to present a couple of very well-known general purpose products. We have in the semi-gloss machine-coated papers, we have actually developed two solutions, one with 30% recycled content and one with 100% recycled content. The papers are basically comparable with what we currently run in the standard products. And can be used in all well-known applications where the semi-gloss papers are used in home and personal care, in food, and in otherwise VI applications as well. Next to that, we have a RDT, which is a recycled direct thermal, in this case, a thermal eco. We're the first to the market with that. It contains 50% recycled content. and we see also a good traction of this product in the area of VI. So all of these are made with PCR and or some PIR, so post-industrial. They all can be converted with the well-known standard converting and printing technologies, and lead to reduction on trees, water, and basically a lower carbon footprint. But actually, to complete these solutions, we don't want to offer them on our standard liners. We have also recycled liners in our portfolio with these front materials, and they actually improve your sustainability credentials even more. An rPET and an RBG are available for our customers in these product solutions. They increase the total picture and improve basically the sustainability footprint. The liners actually are also a closed loop. So from liners, they go back into the liner waste, and they come into the liner production recycle stream. And the PET recycled stream is very often that for the rPET, the bottles are used that come clean out of the clean flake process. Last but not least, I want just to give a peek preview in a lot of other recycled products that are available. Most of them in the paper range, in decorative papers. There are products available with 100% post-consumer recycled, but there are also products coming into perspective which actually make use of waste streams that come out of industrial processes. So a barley or out of the wine industry, grape waste also contains a lot of fibers that can be used in the paper production and will be used in these kind of label materials that we have basically developed for our sustainability range. And with that said, I actually want to hand over to Susanna for the fourth pillar.
Thank you, Martin. Good afternoon, everyone. So indeed, I would like to cover in the last part, the responsibly sourced materials. It's a portfolio that we are growing in Avery Dennison, and yeah, I would like to cover a few slides about this topic. So firstly, the Fsc Certified Material. So the forced sewage repellent materials, I think, are quite a standard now across industries. So I'm sure you're familiar with this. So our target for 2025 is to have to source 100% of certified paper, 70% of which would be the Fsc certified. So actually already in Europe, we exceeded that goal. So over 80% of our paper face stocks have the Fsc certification, and more are to come. So this is something we treat more as a standard now to try and expand in the future to have all of our face stocks and liners certified with Fsc. Similar with ISCC, you need to have the full chain of custody certified in order to transfer the Fsc certificates. And I think nowadays it's a common enough practice that I'm sure most of the sites are Fsc certified. Moving on to bioresins. It was covered a little bit in the earlier part by Rob, but I would like to dive in a little bit more of what the bio stands for. So biofilms generally come from non-fossil fuel sources. That's a rule of thumb. Then we can actually divide them further into two categories. So one of them is the bio-based, and the other one is biocircular materials. So bio-based are materials which are sourced directly from plants. So you actually grow certain plants or certain materials in order to turn them into film. So that could be, for example, sugarcane or rapeseed oil. Now, biocircular products are more of a byproduct or waste from other productions. As example would be post-consumer cooking oil, towel oil, which is also a byproduct of paper production. So in Avery Dennison, we focus on the biocircular material, so the by-waste of other productions. And we focus on the ISCC certification. So as Rob mentioned earlier, this certification is based on the mass balance, of the products that go in and then go out in the filmmaking process. And similarly to FSC, the full chain needs to be certified in order for you to claim the ISCC certification on the bioresins. So moving on. Oh, I can't seem to get the next slide. Perfect, yes. So speaking a little bit more in detail of what we have to offer as Avery Dennison in terms of bio-based or biocircular films. So we offer up to 85% of biocircular oil. So the biocircularity comes from, again, byproducts of other productions and is ISCC material. So because it doesn't use any fossil fuels or significantly reduced amount of fossil fuels, it has, of course, higher sustainability credentials. So you see at the bottom of the slide that there's a significant decrease in the fossil fuel use, energy, and water. Because this is an ISCC mass balance material, it actually has direct food contact. So it acts and looks very similar to the virgin material. At the moment, we have this material available in white cavitated, but also clear and solid white are optional if we have interest. This is so at the moment we have PP ISCC certified biocircular PP available, and we are in the process of qualifying the bio-based or biocircular PE with ISCC certification. So thank you very much. I think we move on now to the Q&A, right?
Thank you very much, Susanna. Thank you to all speakers for the detailed presentations. And yes, indeed, now it's time for our expert Q&A. There are quite a lot of questions, but before we dive in, just a very quick reminder for those who joined us a little bit later. This session, as the previous ones, is being recorded, and all that content will be available to you next week together with the slide decks. And as I said, there are quite a few questions, which is fantastic. Please keep them coming. And I will start with the first one. So the first one is about adhesives. So the question is whether this adhesive is soluble, and adhesive is SR3011N. And is it soluble and reactivable? Can anyone take that?
So that is the SR3011N. So that's the clean flake adhesive. So it's not soluble. Actually, what happens is when the clean flake label ends up as flakes into the washing bath, you will have clean separation of the label and the pet flake. The sink float principle, we call that. And what happens with the adhesive is that it deactivates and it stays on the label. So you have a clean removal from the pet flake, the adhesive stays on the label, and therefore you have a clean separation. The adhesive does not dissolve in the water.
Okay, thank you. And the next one is regarding labels on the Htpe recycling. So what about the effect of the adhesive in the final quality of recycled PE obtained?
Yeah, so very good question. And that's exactly the reason why we did the study and this semi-industrial trial together with Recycling. So the materials that got approved were global MDO, P85, PP60, this kind of material. So first thing is what's very interesting is, even if you look at it from a monomaterial perspective, you would logically say Htpe with PP, but actually what the study has shown, as long as you have a polyolefin label, it is compatible within the Htpe recycling stream. So that's a very interesting learning, and therefore global MDO, a more sustainable solution than, for instance, versus P85, is a very good option, alternative option versus P85, for instance. If you go into the Recycling website to see the guidelines, or even on our own website, you can actually have direct access to the technical letters where you can find those details. What you will see is that there are a couple of, let's call them conditions. So first of all, the bottle needs to be 40%, max 40% labeled. That is actually quite a lot, because if you would take an average shampoo bottle, that means a full front and a full back panel. It also shows something about the adhesive. If you look at the adhesive, it's a certain percentage in grammage that is compatible, or that grammage is the same, let's say, as our standard range. So you can use any standard product for this, and it's still compatible. So if you buy, let's say, the standard materials from Avery Dennison in HDPE, the adhesive is not a blocker. Actually, if you read the technical letters very well, you will see that we have done also bottle extrusion, and therefore thereafter we check the quality of those bottles. They have been produced with 50% recycled HDPE and 50% virgin, but also 100% recycled. And actually, based on the 100%, we got the approval. So the adhesive did not have a impact on the bottle-to-bottle process, basically.
Okay, and I believe you answered this one to some extent, but there was a question whether there's impact for food contact bottles.
Food contact bottles for?
Yeah, so the question concerning HDPE recycling bottle to bottle, whether there's an influence of the label for food contact bottles.
So that's a very good question. So mechanically recycled HDPE or PP will never ever does not have food approval. So that's why you see, for instance, the RHDPE bottles you see today are very much in non-food applications. You see them, for instance, a lot in laundry care or in certain home care or personal care applications. But you know, as not really the quality or the sources are controlled very well during HDPE recycling, there's no food approval. So you can only use this in non-food approved applications.
Okay, that's very clear, thank you. And the next one, I've heard that GRX1 was phased out in October. Is that correct?
That's
Anyone?
a good question. I don't have the answer to that. Susanna, do you know? Or do we need to come back on this question?
We need to come back on this question.
Okay, no problem. We'll get back to Dagmar with the right answer. And what about, that's a bit broad, so I'm not sure we'll be able to answer that, but the question is, what about S9500 compostable adhesive? It doesn't specify what the question is about.
So the S9500 adhesive indeed is also a compostable adhesive, just similar to the one that we presented. It's just the difference between some of the products is that we have, with certain adhesive, we have the full laminate approved for compostability, and for other products we only have the face stock and the adhesive approved, or we can claim that are compostable. So I think that's the difference.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, and another one. I can see that you offer products with 30% or 100% recycled content. Why not always 100%?
I can take this one if you okay. That would be ideal, but there is some limitations. One, it's actually that we want to create a performance and keep a performance of products, and if we go in some cases to 100% recycled, we might lose the functionality of the label in converting in application. Next to that, we've also seen that going for 100% recycled, which is possible in some cases, is having a high impact on the cost side of the product, because the recycled content raw materials are actually not available in very high quantities at this moment. So that's something that we hope will change due to legislation, due to also our own behavior as consumers, that we will have more recycled content available and at a more economical value, you might say. So from that perspective, we have 30 or different percentages towards 100%. It has to do with the performance of the label and also with the availability of the raw materials, recycled raw materials.
Yeah, and to build on that, and I'm fully aligned with Maarten, clearly the intent is to grow those percentages over time. Today, I think Avery Dennison offers really the choice. So 30% still cost competitive, I would say, high quality, or you go for the higher sustainable footprint and you go for the 100% solutions. I think also what you see with recycled content is it's a bit of a journey, because one of the feedbacks we get quite a lot from customers is, for instance, there will be always some impurities, for instance. Taking here, for instance, an RPE or an RPP, mechanically recycled, there will be some impurities because it's recycled content. So it can be a small black dot, for instance, or fish eye, we call that. However, saying that, I think we introduced the first RPE in 2019, and now 2 years later, if I see how the quality has evolved, it's quite remarkable, to be honest. Simply because there's more sources coming available, better sources, higher quality sources. We see actually that the value chain is much more getting used to those materials, so they have a better way of processing it. So actually you see sometimes really 100% material with 100% recycled content, and it's very, very, very difficult to see the difference with a virgin material. So it's clearly it's a journey.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next question. When is a 100% recycled thermal label coming? Do we have any plans for that?
Yeah, obviously. I think what Rob just said, it is a journey. It's actually a highway journey. And sometimes we're overtaken by others and then we take the lead again. It doesn't matter. We will go in that direction. There will be high recycled content materials becoming available in the near future. And if you see here the question talking about 100% direct thermal, it's work in progress, and it will be there sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is a little bit long, so bear with me, and that's about post-industrial recycled content and post-consumer recycled content. So, are we at Avery Dennison consider post-industrial recycled content as recycled content? Because there is a mention that there is a discussion in the industry. What is the right approach?
Yeah, obviously we obtain materials from our suppliers and they make a statement where the waste comes from. Post-consumer recycled materials is for everybody the best. We have the idea it's coming after consumption. But if we think, for instance, about label waste, and then in this case liners, the labels are applied in the process of making a final product that goes to consumers. The liners, are they obtained as post-consumer waste or post-industrial waste? That's where the industry still has not really a clear definition or stand taken. Some see it as it's end of the lifetime of a liner, and therefore it is now consumed, and therefore it is PCR or post-consumer waste. Others say no, it's still somewhere in the industry. at the end, what we should try to avoid is that it is going to landfill or incineration. If we can use these and make papers of them or filming materials, that's what it's all about. There's also a second part on this question, yeah, that I want to answer. It's about certification. And that's clearly still a kind of self-certification. Now, that is with regards to, let's say, recycled content in pulp. But if we talk about how it is in the ISCC, there you see already a certification on percentage, either via mass balance, what actually is recycled, the recycled content. So there is, that's also work in progress. We see, and this is the journey that we go now, we see more and more that we all talk the same things. Yeah? So if we talk about recycled in the future, it's the same how our customers will talk about it and the consumer. And at the moment, there might still be several different views on it not being certified.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is about the bio-based films. So one of you mentioned that twice as much water is used for this material. So can you explain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the answer is really based on how the film is produced. So if you have a virgin material, it's produced purely from oil, so fossil fuel oils, and then you have very little water in the production. Now, this analysis was based on the tall oil material that we also that is possible to use in the bio-based product or biocircular products, which naturally paper production uses quite a lot of water as resources. So given that the life cycle analysis covers the entire part of the life of the product, so including what it was before it became the film, naturally there will be much more water used in the production. So the byproduct by itself, we need to account for that water, even though, of course, it's not in the end product, but it was used in the production of, in this case, paper.
Okay, thank you very much. That was very clear. And the next one is about any vegan materials. Are there any available?
I know there is a vegan range, and it's not part of the scope of this, let's say, discussion. It's there. So there is a vegan range, but we have to maybe come back to this requester separately, because I'm not aware what it currently has and which materials we have available.
Okay,
we do have some vegan products, and we can come back to the person who asked the question. I'm sure we have some information on the website as well.
Sure, yeah, we'll do that. Okay, and the next one about the oxy barrier reclosure label. So is there a certain number of open closed cycle to which the freshness of the product stays the same?
Very good, very technical question.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
And there obviously is. It all depends on the application. And if we talk here about the freshness of goods, the amount of open and closing normally is something like 5 to maybe 8 times or 10 times. And that's probably how the product is designed. In some cases, people might open this maybe 20 times, and then it might become less and less functional. So yes, there is obviously a test done how often these can be opened and closed. I have to again say I don't know the answers specifically on how often this particular product is going to open.
We can come back to that as well.
Okay, yeah, okay. And the next one, I can see that RDT contains 15% recycled content, and we know that all the products by 2025 must contain 25%. So yeah, coming back to what we discussed earlier. So when do you think the RDT will have a higher proportion of the recycled content.
And I'm convinced, or I know we will have during next year. This is something that we will sort, because we want actually to go with everything on 30% or more on recycled content, because they tick the boxes in most people their tasks and sustainability goals for the future, also our own. So this is work in progress. It was the first product we could get and could commercialize in such a way that we had no difference between the running and using it versus the virgin materials. So we were happy that we had something. Work in progress, welcome.
Okay, thank you. And a question about certification. So for recycled paper like our natural, the Fsc certification is credit mixed. So why is it not the Fsc recycled credit?
Again, very technical, detailed question. I think we need to come back on this one.
Okay, no problem. No problem. So Christoph will get back to you offline. And are you able to compare label stock constructions and provide a CO2 benefit for each product evolution?
If we can provide a CO2 benefit for each solution?
Each product evolution. So I believe it's related to the production.
Yeah, so we have LCA, life cycle analysis, as you have seen in some of the slides. Very typically, we compare it, let's say, from the incumbent product to the more sustainable solutions. And CO2 is one of the credentials, I would say, we measure. So we do have that data, yes.
Okay. And for those who are...
Sorry, Christina. Well, I just want to say, the nice thing of this LCA tool we have is that we can customize it. So if you have a specific need or specific project and you want to move an X square meters from product A to product B, we actually can give you the actual credentials based on our tool for water, oil, trees, CO2. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And for those who are interested in certifications, we'll get back to that topic tomorrow. So we'll have a session at 2 p.m. tomorrow when we'll dive deeper into all the claims and certifications. So please join us tomorrow to learn more. And the next question, so can anyone explain how non-returnable glass is recycled? Do labels influence this process, or does it matter what labels are made for it in this case?
So if you look at glass, one-way glass, the vast majority today is on a paper, with paper label. Look at the majority of beer bottles, for instance, but also a lot of glass jars. It's typically with paper labels. They basically have no impact as the labels are really burned. Very high temperature when the glass is remelted and used. But you see with filmic labels, they can have some impact on the quality of the bottles. And therefore, using a wash-off solution for the one-way, actually what you see is that you can start separating then also the labels from the glass. And therefore, you take out filmic labels from that process, and therefore you also improve the quality of the glass. So it does have an impact. It's not a massive impact, but it can have an impact.
Okay, thank you. And there's a question about the BioPE being withdrawn in the market in the UK, and the question is whether we are expecting to bring it back to that market. Can any of you answer that?
Yeah, I can cover this one. So indeed, we have withdrawn the Biobased PE quite recently. So this material was a sugarcane sourced film, and we do not intend to go back to this one. But as I mentioned in my part of the presentation, we are in the process of qualifying the ISCC Plus certified bio-based PE. So this product will return to Avery Dennison, slightly different form, but it will be back.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and the other one is about the RFID inlays. So do we have any sustainable smart labeling solutions?
Very good technical question again. I think we need to come back to that as well.
Yeah, so that question was asked anonymously. So if you could type in your details, we'll get back to you on that, or you can just message me directly to the email you got with the registration. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
we have a whole bunch of technical experts around RFID. Obviously, we have tons of solutions in this field. So I'm sure we have something that we will come back on this one.
Thank you. And another one, I understand that due to problems with supply, you have discontinued PE85 Biobased Clear and White S692. Is that the same question as we had?
It's the same question.
Is it
the same product.
Okay, so yeah, that will be back. Okay, and I can see that this is it. I can't see any new questions coming. I believe that we answered all we had, and there are a few we need to get back to after the session. So last chance to our audience. Thank you for being engaged. Thank you for asking questions. If there's anything else, that's your last chance to ask. Okay, I can't see anything.
I think there's one question from Tanya. I don't know if that was covered. The difference between bio-based and biocircular content.
Oh, I can't see that question actually popping in on my screen. Oh, sorry, it's here. Okay, sorry, yes, that's right, yeah. So what would be the difference between bio-based and biocircular content?
Yeah, so again, as I explained earlier, so bio-based, it's something that you quite literally grow in the ground, and then you turn it into a film. So you have certain area devoted for growing plants that will be then turned into film. Biocircular does not require, let's say, growing something or making something for the purpose of making the biofilm. It is a byproduct of other activities. So again, as I mentioned on the example of towel oil, so that's a derivative of the paper production process. So in this case, we would take the towel oil and put it in the production of the film, and then we can claim it's biocircular. So it's we don't let any part of the process go to waste. We reuse this material further. Yeah, and then I think the benefit of using the biocircular material is that you further reduce the waste. So rather than, again, taking the oil that perhaps would go to landfill or be disposed of any other way, you can give it a second life and turn it into, for example, a label that's biocircular.
Okay, thank you. And there is one more I can see here. So are compostable labels the future? So what's your opinion on that?
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this, to be honest. I think the fundamental question you have to ask yourself is always again, we go back to this eco-design or design for recyclability. What is your packaging made of? And what is the best label solution to enable the best end of life? So if you have a rigid plastic, a PET bottle, or a PP bottle or whatsoever, you should never put a compostable label on it. It doesn't have any function. But you see, for instance, a lot in countries now with, for instance, in France or in Italy, you go to the supermarket and you go to the fruits and vegetables department, you actually see those new bags. They are all compostable bags. And then you put on a weigh scale, you get your VI label or your barcode label. Yes, then it should be a compostable bottle, compostable label, obviously, because it's the same as the packaging. So again, it depends very much on the application.
Okay, understood. Okay, I can't see any more questions. So with this, I would like to thank our speakers. Thank you, Rob, Susanna, Martin. Thank you for all the detailed presentations. And thank you to our audience for being very active and asking a lot of questions. We still have one more session to go tomorrow. We'll start at 2 o'clock. If you signed up for that session, you can join it using the same link. If not, we provided you with a link in the chat, so you can still register for that session now. And all the sessions are being recorded, and we will share them with you next week together with the slide decks. Well, thank you very much all for joining. Thank you to our speakers, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.